Morning, everyone. Due to some personal reason, today I cannot have the lessons with you. So, therefore, in order not to disturb our teaching schedules, I have recorded videos to um, continue the parts that we have missed. I mean, the parts that we didn't cover during the extra lessons in the Easter holiday. So, therefore, um, please take out your chapter 24 lesson worksheet and we will continue to go through the last part of our handouts so that we will complete all the parts in chapter 24. Now, in during the extra lessons in Easter holiday, we have already talked about the homework, and also we have already mentioned about or revised on the non-specific defense mechanism. Now, in previous lessons, in fact, we will notice that our body defense mechanism separate into two parts. First part, okay, um, our body defense mechanism, in fact, it separate into two parts. Okay, so please copy it down for your reference. Now, first part, it is what we call the non-specific defense mechanism. And while we have another part, which is the specific defense mechanism. So for specific defense mechanism, it mainly we are related to the we are mainly referring to the B cells and also the T cell. While non-specific mechanism, we can further divide it into two parts, which is our physical barrier and also our chemical barrier. Is okay? Now, when before we move on to the specific defense mechanism, I just want to quickly revise with you about the non-specific defense mechanism. Uh, there are several examples that is quite important for you to memorize it. First, in our respiratory tract, in fact, there will be two types of cells that we have already go through, which is the first one, the mucus secreting cells, which mainly trap the dust and also the pathogens. And on the other hand, also have the ciliated um, epithelial cells, and basically they will have some ciliate, and in fact, it will swept the mucus out of our respiratory tract. Remember, the ciliate um, um, on the ciliated epithelial cells, in fact, is totally different from the hair we have, the nostril, okay, in our nostril. The hair, it is trapping some large-sized dust and also some air particle. But the ciliated epithelial cells is not trapping the dust and also the pathogens. It cannot trap the dust and also the pathogen, but it just mainly the function is to sweep the mucus out of our respiratory tract. So therefore, the cilia we have in our ciliated epithelial cells is totally different from the hair, okay, we have in the nostril. Now, we have the second part, which is our skin. There is a layers, what we call the epidermis, and basically it is a tough, impermeable barrier for it is a impermeable barrier not to letting the pathogens to get into our body. So therefore, um, this epidermis can help us to prevent some um, uh, pathogens get into our bodies. Okay. Then we have the second one, which at the third one, which is our blood clot. So once we have a cut, so the soluble fibrinogen, in fact, it will convert into some insoluble fibrin. So therefore, our blood platelet, red blood cells, and also our white blood cells will be trapped in these fibrin. And in this case, these cuts, okay, no longer will continue to let the pathogens to get into our body. Okay. Now we have the second part, which is our chemical barrier. There will be some enzymes and also some chemical that's secreted by ourselves. And for example, the lysosomes, which is a type of enzymes which can contain inside our tears or salivas, they will destroy the pathogen by damaging the membrane. And apart from that, our body will also secrete some sebum, gastric juice, or some vaginal secretions. And these chemicals, they are either antiseptics or they are either a type of acid or they are slightly acidic in nature. This can inhibit or stop the growth of the pathogen, or even as it is too acidic, they may also kill the pathogens. Now, we also notice that, okay, once there is pathogens get into our body, we may have some response, some inflammatory response. And the first one, we call it the redness. The second one, which is the hotness. And the third one, it is the swelling. And the last one, it is the pain. In Cantonese, we will say 紅熱脹痛. Now, why will we have the swelling or why there will be hotness? Okay, hotness, this is because of the increased blood flow, and this will cause a rise in temperature. And while for swelling, there will be an accumulation of tissue fluid. So why it will have the accumulations of tissue fluid? This is because it is caused by the increased permeability of the capillary. Okay, now we'll move on to the specific defense mechanism. Basically, we are focusing on the B cells and also the T cells. Now, both of them, they are produced in the bone marrow. But, okay, the formation, okay, maybe I may not use produce, okay, better, I use formation, okay. They are formed in bone marrow. But, okay, the mature site is totally different. For B cells, the sites that they are mature, in fact, they are mature in the bone marrow. But, okay, the T cells, it will be mature in the thymus. Then, okay, the thymus glands, okay. Then, okay, we will see that basically for B cells and T cells, they are slightly different. And it is important that the helper T cells in, these T cells, they will differentiate into what we call the helper T cells. The helper T cells, it will further activate more B cells, activate to form more B cells. So once, okay, they see the antigen, okay. So what is antigen? Okay, remember, antigen, for example, we got some pathogen, and there will be some, okay, special protein formed on the uh, uh, pathogens. Then these, okay, will be the antigen. And this antigen is something that may cause some inflammatory response to us. Now, some of the antigen, okay, it may not cause any inflammatory response because it is this antigen in our body. But we have some other antigen that may cause the inflammatory response. For example, the antigen from the pathogens. And these antigens will cause, okay, or once the B cells and also the T cells, the memory B cells and also the memory T cells recognize the antigen, okay, only the B cells, it will produce, okay, some what we call the antibodies. Okay. Now, these antibodies, in fact, they are some Y-shaped protein. So they will bind specific antigen on the pathogen, and they will cause several um, purpose, okay, or they will have several functions. First, they will lysis of pathogens, meaning that they will break down of the cell membrane, and they will have the agglutinations, and this means that there will be some clumping or agglu uh, aggregates, okay, some several proteins together to facilitate the phagocytosis by the phagocytes. And lastly, they may form some antitoxin, which will neutralize the toxin. Now, the B cells, plasma cell, the B cells, it will differentiate into plasma cells and they will produce some antibodies. And these antibodies is totally different from the idea of antibiotics. Remember, antibiotic in Cantonese, we call it 抗生素, okay? It is only produced, or it is some substance produced by the fungi. But inside our body, we should not have the fungi. So therefore, we will only have antibodies, but we will not have the antibiotics. Okay，咁係抗體。Okay，so therefore remember of the difference between antigen, antibody, and also antibiotics. In Cantonese, for antigen, we call it 抗原. Now, with these ideas, then we will notice that B cells, apart from differentiate into plasma cell, it will also differentiate into memory B cells for the recognition of the antigen. Then for T cells, it will differentiate into two types of cells. First, we call it the killer T cells, and it will kill the infected cells directly. By how? By making some holes on the cell membrane of the pathogen. Okay, then there will be also memory T cells for us to remember the antigen. Okay, now we have this idea. Then last lesson, as we do not have enough time to go through these question, so therefore, if you haven't completed, please spend a couple of minutes, maybe just around 1 to 2 minutes, to help me to complete this concept check and tell me what is the functions of P and what is P, or what is the things um, that's produced, okay, by the lymphocytes, okay. It is something that produced by a type of lymphocyte. So please, okay, uh, help me to complete this question. Okay, 3 marks, and it means that descriptions about the function. So therefore, first things that we need to mention is to what is P? P is, okay. Okay, so I think most of you should already complete it. So now let us see whether you can get these keywords. So first of all, P, in fact, it represents what kinds of things. In fact, it represents the antibodies. Okay, and these antibodies, in fact, it is used to attach or bind, okay, to the pathogen. But in fact, they are not just simply attached to the pathogen, but they are attached on the surface, okay, to the surface of the pathogen, okay? Then in this case, P will further bind several, okay, pathogens together to form, okay, a big clumping or a big cluster of pathogen, okay, so that this can, okay, a cluster of pathogen complex. Now, then what is the functions? Okay, they are basically to enhance or facilitate the phagocytosis of Q, okay, which is the uh, phagocyte, okay. So this would be the first mark here, okay. It will be attached to the surface or the antigen of specific pathogens, and okay, they will bind several, okay, sorry, bind several antigens, bind several pathogens, okay, together, and to make a make a clump or make a cluster of pathogen complex to enhance or to facilitate the phagocytosis of Q. Okay, so this is how we try to answer the questions that which we describe the functions of antibodies. Now, in the lessons, in the previous lessons, we have also mentioned about the immune response on the specific defense mechanism. We will notice that the B cells, in fact, they are trying to do one thing, okay, which is the B cells, it will try to help us, okay, to recognize, okay, the specific antigen on the pathogens, okay. So most of the B cells, okay, they will divide and also differentiate into what we call the memory B cells. And apart from that, it will be also divide into the plasma cells, mainly for the release of antibodies to fight against the pathogens. So now, in this case, if you still haven't marked it down, please help me to mark it down, okay? The B cells, it will recognize the specific, okay, antigens on the pathogens. So B cells will then divide and differentiate into memory B cell and also the plasma cell, okay? Now, in the first or the primary response, that means that we have the first infections. It takes times for the B cells to do the cell divisions and also differentiations. So therefore, the numbers of memory B cells is take a very long time in order for them to have a certain number, and also the plasma cell. Okay, the plasma B cells, it also takes a lot of time for them to develop. So they also need to find out the correct or the suitable antibodies to fight against the pathogens. So therefore, it do takes time. So please help me to mark it down that it takes a long time. Okay. Then, okay, for sorry, let me mark it down. Okay, the memory B cell and also the plasma cell, it would release antibodies antibodies, okay, to fight against pathogen. Now then, okay, for the T cells, in fact, it will remember, okay, it will also separate into, or it will also divide and also differentiate into two types of cells. First, we have the memory T cell and also the killer T cell. For the killer T cells, it will kill the infected cells directly. And after, okay, we have the first time infections, we will have the second infections. Now, for the second infections, it is it will cause what we call the secondary response, and in our body, we will have a less side effect, but okay, we will have a stronger response to the pathogens. Okay, now for our memory B cells, as there is already we have the memory B cells, so they will quickly recognize the specific or the same, okay, antigen again. So then they will, the helper T cells, it will further do the divide and also differentiate. But this time it will a lot faster, so therefore it will be rapidly divide and also differentiate into large amount of plasma cells to release more antibodies. Okay, so sorry, maybe during the extra lessons, I maybe for this sentence, maybe I have I may have write down slightly wrong the answer. So please help me to correct it. Okay, then for the memory T cells, it will recognize, okay, the same antigen again. Okay, but then what will they do? This time they will also rapidly, okay, meaning quickly do the divisions and also differentiate into a large amount of plasma, sorry, the killer T cell and also the memory T cell, okay? And apart from, sorry, it should not be memory T cells, it should be the helper T cell, the helper T cell. So more and more killer cells, killer T cells will kill the infected cells directly. And this will produce more antibodies within a shorter period of time. Okay, so the protective effect, it will be also last longer than before. Now, then we will try to have a look on the cross topic with chapter 23. Now, dengue fever, it is an infection caused by the dengue virus, okay, the DENV. So in this case, it is a endemic illness, okay, in many countries in tropical and also subtropical regions. So in this case, the dengue fever, it encompasses four different type of subtype. So each subtype can lead to the dengue fever. Okay, so therefore we can see there are four types of dengue virus. Now, first of all, what would be the ways for the dengue fever to do the transmission? Uh, I have already mentioned about this in chapter when we learn about chapter 23. So now I will give you 1 minute to help me to write down the transmission, okay, the ways of transmission of these dengue fever. Okay, so let's see. Okay, now, first of all, for the ways of transmission, it should be most of the um, times, maybe you will write down, oh, it is transmitted by animal. Sorry, if you write down, if it is transmitted by animal, you cannot get the mark. This is because for dengue fever, it is not all the animal will cause the dengue fever, but it is caused by the mosquito. So therefore, it you can either write it down in a way like transmitted by factor or by mosquito. Next, okay, for suggest, okay, two environmental factor in the tropical and also subtropical regions, which leads to a higher risk of contacting the dengue fever for people living in these regions. So now, why is tropical and also subtropical, it will have a higher risk for contacting dengue fever. Now, what you will need to think about, what would be the environmental factor in these area? And these environmental factors, how it will lead to the effect of mosquito and also the overall population of the mosquito. So therefore, okay, for example, if you see, okay, in fact, the mosquito, it do have the faster growth, or it may be more active when the temperature is warmer, comparing to some non tropical or non-subtropical regions. Because these non-tropical area, or maybe um, uh, some very cold area, the temperature is very low, so they will have a very low metabolic rate. So in this case, they will be not that active. Okay, so therefore, the first mark for it, it will be the mosquito. It will have a faster grow rate, or they will be more active in tropical or the subtropical region. Then the second one, okay, as they will have more rainfall, okay, the tropical and also subtropical region, we will have more rainfall. And in this case, the more rainfall will lead, okay, to more breeding ground, okay. For the mosquito during the rain season. Okay, now then, okay, we will see that the patient infected with a particular subtypes of dengue fever for the first time can recover on their own after a week without any treatment. So give three types of white blood cells, okay, that aids the recover, and also describe each of their function. So in this case, I'll give you 3 minutes to try to find out the three types of white blood cells, which three types of white blood cells that they will aid the recovery. Okay, so you realize that, okay, the first type that we may see, the white blood cells, first one, it will be our phagocytes, okay? Then we need to think about what is the function of the phagocytes here. In fact, the phagocytes, it will engulf the aggregated viral particle. Okay, then the second one, which is our B lymphocyte, or the plasma cell, what will they do? They will produce the antibodies to neutralize, okay, the dengue viral particle. And the third one, okay, then apart from the B lymphocytes, we also have the T lymphocyte. Then what is the function for the T lymphocyte? It used to recognize and also kill the body cell that infected by the virus, okay? Or the DENV, okay? The DENV, okay? So here would be the three types of white blood cells and their corresponding functions, okay? Now, then, okay, explain why people who have recovered from the infections with a particular subtypes of dengue fever, they can be still infected with another subtype of dengue fever in the future. That is because different subtype, that means that what would be the difference on their surface? Yes, the antigen will be different. So therefore, okay, they will have different antigen on different subtype of the Dengue virus. Okay, so in this case, our memory cell produced it after the infection on one particular subtype cannot recognize one another subtype. Okay, then okay, what can we do okay to against the dengue fever? Maybe wear some long sleeve clothes and trousers. Okay, or maybe use the insect repellent. Okay, use the insect repellent. Okay, now then okay, uh how can we prevent, okay, or how can we reduce the side effect? Mainly, we can use the vaccination. So, in fact, the vaccination, it will help us to uh, stimulate, okay, our primary response. So when the same types of antigens come into our body again, so what happened, okay, it can directly produce a secondary response, okay? So once we have uh, inject the vaccinations, then in this case, it can help us, okay, to have the secondary response. So we can have a less or we will have a not that strong side effect. And in this case, it can increase our survival rate. Now, I would like you to do some study. I would like you to do some self-study at home related to the vaccination as we will talk about it tomorrow. Okay, so please, okay, help me to try to work on or have a look on this past paper and see, okay, how the effectiveness of the vaccinations can do when we face, okay, different um, 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 pathogens, okay? So, or how the protective, how our protections, okay, how the vaccination will protect us, okay, against the pathogens, okay? So now, okay, today lessons we will stop here. And please, okay, do some revisions at home. And I hope, okay, I have already recapped all part of the um, 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 defense mechanisms with you. And next lesson, we'll come back, we'll talk about on the vaccinations. Okay. So if you have any question, feel free to ask me or get through the WhatsApp.